Hello, this is Patrick, and this is my co-host, Petter.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to the Third Reel. On today's episode, our guest is Charles.
Hello.
And the film we are talking about is The Shawshank Redemption.
Yes.
Well, the first thing I want to ask you guys is to get a brief history of our kind of involvement with reading or watching the works of Stephen King.
Okay, I think I'll start.
Okay.
I think probably the first Stephen King thing I saw was The Langoliers. It was like a TV short that I don't remember how I watched, but I did when I was really young, and I really liked it. And then, so I went on, I watched some other stuff, like I ended up seeing The Stand. They'd had like some, a series with that on TV.
Yeah.
And then I started reading the books, like different Stephen King books. And then, later on when I got older, I saw Psycho and, all the other, popular Stephen King movies. And yeah, that's just kind of it.
Is Psycho with
Psycho
Stephen
wasn't
King?
Stephen King.
Oh, shit, it wasn't. No, I mean, The Shining.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
Right.
What about you,
Alfred
Petter?
Hitchcock is
I'm going to be
Psycho.
perfectly honest here. I'm not too well versed when it comes to Stephen King. Obviously, I know he wrote the collection of novels which contains The Shawshank Redemption, but that's roughly it. I knew, however, that he didn't write Psycho. I can say that. But
I got him
that's all
confused
Petter
with Alfred
knows.
Hitchcock.
yeah,
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm
terrible.
No,
Fair enough. Fair enough. Mistake.
It's all right. It's an honest mistake. So to my knowledge, I haven't seen any other films besides The Shawshank Redemption that's based on a Stephen King book, and I have not read any of his books.
Okay. Well, I have a pretty somewhat extensive history with reading and watching some of his films. I love the book The Shining, and I love the movie just as much. I've read most of the Dark Tower series, which is his kind of magnum opus, I guess we can say, that connects to most of his other books. And as far as movies go, I've seen quite a few. Other than The Shining, my favorite probably being the recent It movie that was released.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the Dark Tower film?
No, I didn't want my imagination of how that world is portrayed messed up by the film.
Right, I heard it was not so good.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
shame.
I didn't see it either. Oh, did he write the book and do that movie about? Oh gosh, I can't remember the title. It was like oh wait, was it called Misery? That
Yeah.
where the girl like captures that author and holds him hostage.
Yep. He wrote
yeah.
that, and a movie was made about that. Yeah.
Huh?
But we talk about Stephen King because he obviously wrote the novella that The Shawshank Redemption was based on, which is the novel is titled Rita Hayworth in Shawshank Redemption, which, from the little bit of the director's commentary that I listened to for the film, they changed because people got confused thinking Rita Hayworth was going to be a main character in the movie. Which, of course, she isn't.
Yeah, well, no. Interesting.
But, anyway, The Shawshank Redemption was released in, I believe...
94.
I want to say, 94. And it was directed by Frank Darabont. I think that's how you pronounce his name. I probably butchered that, but who would later go on to direct other Stephen King adaptations and some of his other and some original works, I believe. But
When was the book written? Do you know that?
I want to say in the 80s.
All right.
Yeah, Wikipedia is telling me 1982.
Okay, so 12 years before the film came out then.
Yeah.
Right.
And there are a lot of differences between the novel and the movie.
Yeah, because just to make it clear to the listeners, you're the only one out of the three of us who's read the book.
Yeah.
Because I'm unless you have Charles. I don't know if you have Charles.
I haven't.
Right, and neither have I. So.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and I'll let you go, Petter.
I was just gonna say that 1994, I think, was a great year for films because not only did we get this film, The Shawshank Redemption, which, in my opinion, is a masterpiece. I adore this film so much. But we also had another massive film, which I also really love to death, which is Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah.
Two huge American films in the same year.
What I really enjoy about the movie adaptation is the setting of the prison. This is very kind of open, but at the same time claustrophobic place.
Right.
And the movie starts with some like a big sweeping shot of the prison, and it almost makes you feel like it's gonna be this open air kind of place. But when you get into the majority of the movie, it takes place within the prison walls, within especially the and we see quite a bit of the prison actually, because the main prisoner is allowed or ends up kind of in the being the kind of librarian and also a lot of other stuff.
Yeah.
But I guess I can't even really call him the main character, because there are kind of two main characters of this movie.
Definitely, yeah.
And just as it was told in the book, in the same in the movie, the perspective we're getting is the character Red, played by Morgan Freeman in the movie. That's one of the major things in the book, which I'm really happy they carried over to the movie.
Oh yeah,
because Red is this very interesting character.
Definitely.
Who has a lot of interesting opinions about things.
And also something I think this film kind of kickstarted, or at least laid the groundwork for, in a way, was, I guess, the trend in a way that having Morgan Freeman's voice narrate scenes in movies. Or in various ways. Like, it was, I think this was the first film where he did something like that, where his character kind of had that kind of role.
Yeah, his character is very kind of the voice of the film.
Yeah, but it's interesting too because, as you said, it's kind of from his perspective, the film, because you see his inner monologue throughout the film, but at the same time, the story is like the character that we know the most about. Precisely, that's Andy.
Yep, it's Andy Dufresne.
Played by Robinson?
Tim Robbins.
Robbins, yes. I knew that. So, yeah, like, he's the character that we know the most about, even though Red is the character who we kind of experience it through. Yeah. Which I think is interesting. Like, they're both main characters in different types of ways, in a sense.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was interesting when Patrick brought up about how, you think the prison's going to be kind of open air and it has a lot of space, but instead it's claustrophobic, and, there's like different parts where Red kind of touches on that, the whole thing about you get familiar with the prison and it becomes kind of like a home almost in a way when you've been there for a really long time.
Oh my god, yeah.
Which becomes a major theme of the movie.
Yeah. With two specific characters I feel really lift that up. Being one of them being Red and the other being Brooks, I think is his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brooks.
And
the former librarian.
Before we get to and before we get to Brooks and that, in the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to the warden character.
Oh, yes.
Who's this kind of very cold person who's a very Old Testament kind of guy. He wants everybody to have a Bible. Yeah. And what's weird about this is that in the original novel, there were actually a few wardens throughout Andy Dufresne's time at the prison. And the warden who's introduced in the movie is only introduced near the last, 10 years of where the novel takes place.
So, the story in the film... yeah?
In the book, did he do, mess with the taxes and stuff with the other wardens, or was it just the last one, in the movie?
I think it was, the second warden that came in, he started doing that kind of stuff with, because just like in the movie where they're on the roof and they're tarring the roof, he comes up to one of the prison guards who's talking about this wealth that this fortune that he's having handed to him, or possibly having handed to him by his uncle or something who died, and Andy Dufresne, both in the movie and the book, tells him about a way to evade the taxes that would come with that by giving him a one-time only gift to his wife.
Yeah.
And that's kind of similar to how it happens in the book and the movie.
I see.
Yeah.
Speaking of potential changes from the book or similarities between the book and the film, while I was watching it the most recent time, I took note of the years and stuff, just because I wanted to have a grasp of the years. And so the film starts in 1947 and ends pretty much exactly 20 years after that, but with Andy getting out of prison 1 year before it ends. So he was in there for 19 years, and Red got out a year after Andy. Is it the same time span in the book?
It's actually, they go another 10 years. He's in the prison for about 30 years in the book.
Oh, I see.
Man.
Into the 70s.
Ah, damn. Yeah, because he gets out in 66 in the film.
Yeah.
And Red gets out in 67. But yeah, I see. I guess...
the film speeds a lot of this stuff up, which works for the movie because you can only tell so much. And this movie is already pretty long.
Right, yeah, it is about 2 hours and 20 minutes, I think. And I think it makes sense. I think it was a smart move for them to make it take place over fewer years. I mean, it's still a lot of years. Sitting in prison for 19 years or 40 years for Red is still a lot.
Yeah.
But it was probably good to make it less, because if it had been more, it might have looked unrealistic for them to not have aged as much, the actors.
Yeah.
So in the film, it makes
that's
sense.
definitely something that had to be accounted for also. But Brooks' introduction is also very interesting.
It's very sweet.
Yes, where he's like, "Hey, can I have that maggot that's on your food?"
Oh,
Yeah.
he has that bird.
Andy Dufresne is like what?
He thinks he's probably
you're gonna eat
it.
that? Yeah,
Right. I mean, as the audience too, I think we'll expect this to be just a weird old man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, he kind of still is weird. That's not wrong, but
I suppose. But yeah, he races little Jack, I think, the little crow, or raven, or whatever it is.
I believe it was a crow.
Yeah, and his character is very sweet all around. He was the librarian at the hospital, at the prison for 50 years or something like that, I think.
Yeah.
He's just a really sweet guy.
Yeah.
And the tragedy with his character, because I think his is one of the most tragic characters,
Definitely.
is that he had been in that prison since he was 20 or maybe even younger. And when he finally gets out after 50 plus years or whatever it was, he like the world has changed so much that he can't deal with it, and he eventually commits suicide because of it. That is awful.
And one of the more touching moments in both the novel and the book, in the novel and the movie,
and something that like some kind of it's a bit of a social commentary, I suppose. Like when he gets out of prison and he perceives the world as it's changed so much, he says something about how everything moves so fast these days compared to before he got imprisoned and stuff like that. And that was only when did he get out? Like in the 50s, maybe.
Yeah, but you have to.
I think still in the 50s.
Yeah. And of course, like he had been in the prison for a very long time, so of course there was a change. But comparing the 50s to now, we're even more in a hurry than we were back then. So like, we really like it's a funny commentary in my opinion. Like back then it was fast in comparison to the past, but now we're even worse. Like it's crazy.
But that's kind of a good touching point for his decision to kill himself is a good touching point for the biggest theme in the novel and the movie is the idea of the loss of hope. And how far do you have to go to keep hope alive?
Right. Within
your own mind and others.
That is definitely a very central theme, and the two main characters have very different views on hope.
Yeah.
You know, with Andy being he's much more optimistic, and Red being much more like, don't keep that hope because it will only bring you sorrow.
Yeah.
Virtually.
And
get busy living or get busy dying.
Yeah. That's probably one of my favorite lines in the entire movie.
That is great, honestly. Yeah, it's so easy to apply to, other things in life. It's great, I think.
Yeah.
And speaking of, as we were talking about hope, there's two scenes or two bits in the story that I think serve a similar purpose. One of them being the scene where
I think I know one you're gonna say. The one where he plays the music over the intercom.
Yes, that is one of the scenes that I was gonna mention. So, when he starts playing, he has the office for a while and he locks himself in there. He starts playing the music and he broadcasts it like on the entire prison grounds, and he gives everybody some sense of freedom, if just for the moment. I think Red, in his monologue during that, Red says something about how he felt like a free man again, listening to those two Italian ladies sing or whatever it is.
Yeah, he was like,
it's a very beautiful scene.
Yeah, that's what he says. He's like, nobody knew a damn word what they were saying, but it was the most beautiful thing we ever heard, or something like that.
Yeah.
Right. It's so good. And the scene following that scene, they're sitting at the dinner table and they're eating and they're talking about music. Because obviously they had just been through that music thing, and I guess Andy had just gotten out of the isolation thing because he was punished with that. Yeah. And they were talking about it, and Andy says that music gives him hope, and
that's what made being down in that that one area, the solitary confinement, kind of like easy for him, because he had the music in his mind.
Yeah, right. And all the other characters don't understand him. Like, they don't understand that. But yeah, I think that's a very good scene because honestly, it's relatable. At least to me, I think that's very relatable. It's very, very beautiful.
And I hate to tell you, but if I remember correctly, in the book, they're never allowed to actually have music. So that's a
good
the book's
part
much
of the
more
book,
jury. Yeah.
Right.
But basically,
oh, sorry. You go first. I'll put my
in the novella. The library was still kind of a beacon of hope, but it was more from they were able to read about things on the outside.
Oh, so they didn't have they couldn't listen to like vinyls and stuff in the library.
Yeah, but books were more portrayed what music is portrayed in the film.
Right. By the way, I love the bit where like they're getting like vinyls, I think, to the library, and this one guy, one of the main guys, is like sitting and he's like yodeling to the music and is here like headphones. It's really funny.
Yeah.
But the other scene, which I think is serves a similar purpose to the music, to the scene where he's just playing the music like for the entire prison, in the same sense that it also makes them feel like free men, if only for a moment, is when. Earlier we talked about the scene where Andy, when they're tarring the roof, Andy kind of makes that deal with the guard, and he makes it so that his friends get to, drink beer in the sunset on the rooftop, and that's just I cry when I see that because it's just so beautiful, such a beautiful and touching scene. Like, and Andy doesn't even drink alcohol, but he does it to feel free for the time being and to help his friends feel free as well. It's lovely.
Another change from the novella to the movie. In the novella, it was warm beer.
Oh no!
Well, but they still enjoyed it as something.
Still, I mean, I could imagine like if you're in prison for so long, just having one beer, even if it's warm, would be like so good.
Oh, true. Yeah.
And one thing I kind of wonder is just how relatable that movie is to like prison nowadays, because like I know it's probably a lot different because like you would think things are more modern, and back then that was like in the 40s, 50s, whatever.
Yeah.
So I wonder if like you go to prison now and you're like missing things, or if you're like just not exactly as out of touch as like you were back then.
I believe it kind of depends on the prison you go to and what the kind of security level of that prison, what you're allowed to have and what you aren't, but.
Yeah, but my basic point is I always feel like that's like the emblematic prison movie.
Yeah. I think so, probably. It's probably the most famous prison movie, I'd argue. I mean, I couldn't be sure, but
I think
it's up there.
Yeah.
But it also takes place in a very different time, as you said, Charles. Like, I doubt it's quite the same, even though I mean surely there are similarities, but it can't be quite the same now. I can't imagine like with the prison guard being that, like the prison guard killed a man during Andy's first night at the prison, like
yeah, and that brings up another thing. Andy was not guilty.
Yes, that's a big part.
So that's so terrible.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it does happen in real life often.
True.
More often than we probably realize.
Yeah, and that's kind of scary when you think about it. Something that I think is interesting about the film is that, of course, we want to trust the main character. That's just, I think, kind of an instinct that most people have. Like, we want to trust the main character. But I think, like, up until a certain point in the film, it's not like we as the audience don't really know for sure whether or not Andy is innocent or not, it's not until what's his name, Tommy? No, what is his name?
Tommy.
Is it Tommy? Yeah.
Yep, it's Tommy.
Right. It's not until he arrives when we actually get to know for sure that Andy is innocent. Yeah. And of course, he's also a tragic character.
Well, which you have in the movie at least he is.
But still, kind of going on a little bit further on that, you have to wonder if it had took place modernly, if like DNA could have like helped, figure the case out and proved him innocent. But that's like just like a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
But I guess now is a good time to talk about Tommy. He's this very different character to everybody else, even Andy.
Yeah.
He's he's probably the only other character other than Andy who has hope of possibly
That's true.
getting out and doing other things, because he has a girlfriend or wife and a kid.
Precisely.
I believe that's mentioned.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to do his best for them.
Mm.
And
he's
Yeah,
young. He's young and kind of
Yeah.
like a hotshot kid. Like
yeah.
Yeah, he's not very smart, but he tries.
He's not really like hardened like those like the old guys like Red and Brooks and
Yeah, and even Andy. It's funny, I think, as at the beginning of the like when Andy is new at the prison, Andy like when like all the prisoners are joking like, "Hey, we're all innocent here," and Andy just kind of doesn't get it. But when Tommy joins, Andy is in on that. Andy is in on that joke by then, and Tommy is
he's
the one who
more
doesn't
conformed.
get it. You know,
Yeah.
right? I think that's a funny like resemblance, or like it mirrors itself in a nice way.
And what I really love about Tommy is, at this point in stories, there's usually, there's kind of this theory of storytelling where you have to have your characters go through hoops, and like you need to show them like the exact opposite of what they're trying to become. But there's also an idea of showing them what they're going to become, but to spin it in kind of this bad way, where Tommy is shown to be naive, but his naivety causes, and wanting to get out of the prison, causes Andy to lose his chance to use him in both the movie, where he's literally killed off, in the book where he's sent to another lower security prison.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah, damn. And that is, I think, that's the point in the story, in my opinion. After Tommy tells Andy about, you know, that he knows the real killer, who the real killer is, and all that. After he tells him that, and Andy goes to the warden and tells the story to the warden, to which the warden doesn't respond very kindly, and you know, he kills Tommy eventually, in the film anyway. Like that's the point in the story, in my opinion, where the warden truly becomes the villain. Yeah. Like that's when it becomes very, very clear that he is corrupt as all hell.
Yeah. I mean, no matter if it's like in the novel where he doesn't kill anybody literally, or have anybody killed literally, or in the movie where he does kill anybody, where he does actually have Tommy killed. But it's just whether either of those options happens, you realize that he's corrupt because he's not letting Andy become free, even though there's a really good chance that Andy could become free, because because there is that proof of innocence.
Exactly. He just wants to keep using Andy because Andy is smart, and he wants to use him for free, virtually.
Yeah.
Damn.
And it's kind of at that point of the movie where Andy is given this ultimatum. He more or less he gives himself this ultimatum where he can either just give up hope, or he can try the ultimate way of gaining hope by escaping.
Yeah.
And this is the big reveal.
Yeah.
Going back to the beginning where he asks Red, "Can I have a rock hammer?"
Exactly. That's the first time he talks to Red, I think, when he asks him for the rock hammer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Red is like, "I can't give you that. That you could use that to escape." And Andy is like, "Trust me."
I think he thought that he could use it to like kill somebody or as a weapon. I don't think he was...
I think both.
Well, yeah, but both those things kind of come into consideration. And then Andy is like, "You'll see." And then Red gets the rock hammer. And he's like, "Well, I saw."
Just a tiny little thing.
Yeah.
And in the movie, I can't remember how many rock hammers he had, but I know in the book it was referenced that he used multiple rock hammers over the years.
In the film, if I recall correctly, it's not specified. I think the picture
They
I
made it
get
out like he
from
only had the one because it
precisely
was,
like,
down
that's
to
what they make it
nub,
feel like.
Yeah.
Exactly, at the end, like it had been just beaten down to the
completely
nub.
wore
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
But in the book, there are a few that were worn down to the nub,
Ah.
and then Red would just get more.
I guess that makes more sense, to be fair.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I mean, it's a movie. We need to keep the action going.
Oh, yeah.
And those kind of things.
And it really wasn't anything
Not
that felt
necessary.
weird in the moment of the of,
Yeah.
like watching the film. Doesn't
In
feel
the
weird.
moment, nobody would really realize.
Yeah.
Hey, isn't that weird that he just used one rock hammer to
Yeah.
chisel through all of that wall?
Yeah, this is really not
But-
an issue. And a similar thing, like the rock hammer is one of those early hints to like how he would eventually become free. Even though it's very, very vague, like I don't think you would really expect it, especially since they point out, even in that scene, I think he says it would take a man 200 years to peck their way through that wall or something, whatever it
Yeah.
is. Like I don't know if it's exactly
Yeah.
200, but they
It was
say
like several hundred years or something.
right.
Yeah.
So like I don't think
Yeah.
the audience really expects him to use it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
And-
he says he just wants to like carve out some chess pieces, and you see that he
Yeah.
does do that, and you think, okay, he's really using it for that, and that's the whole thing. Like I think in the movie, if I'm remembering correctly, they played it off at the end, like, because like you don't know he's gonna escape or that that he's been digging that hole. They make it out like he's gonna commit suicide.
That is
Yeah.
probably one way to see it. Yeah.
And I believe in the book, the idea of him committing suicide was even more heavily implied.
Oh, interesting. That's honestly
So-
that was never anything that I suspected. Like when ever when I
That's
watched
why
the film.
he said something to Red, and Red was like really like concerned, and he talks
Yeah.
about that during that night during the storm. He says like he was
Oh.
like in agony, mental agony, because he thought that he was gonna wake up and Andy was gonna be dead in his cell.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's because I think the scene before that night, before the night when Andy escapes, I think that one of my favorite scenes in the film is between Andy and Red. They're like sitting, leaning their backs against the prison wall. They're like outside and they're just talking. It's a pretty long scene, but it's just the two of them talking. It's the scene where Andy tells Red to like find the wall and the tree, like at the hayfield place. Like if he
Yeah.
ever gets out, it's that scene. And I think it's in that scene where the sentence is spoken when Andy says "get busy living" or "get busy dying." I think that's the scene where he says that. So I guess it makes sense
Yeah, I
to
can't
assume
recall.
that he would maybe kill himself during that following
Yeah.
night.
And to talk more about his plan for the outside, and in the movie, the fake identity and the money is something he gains from inside of the prison. Well, in the book, it's something he had done before he had kind of set up before he was arrested, and he kind of put money aside in this fake name, and he had a friend on the outside who would help him.
Interesting.
And then
I'm assuming
That,
he did it like while he was on trial, maybe.
sometime in that kind of period, he had a security lockbox, or a lockbox in like a bank where he had the identity and stuff hidden, and the key was underneath the rock that Red would eventually pull out. And I can't remember if there was a key in the movie or not. Was there a key?
I think it was just a little box.
He opened the
it was like a
box and there was a note.
Yeah.
And some money.
Yeah,
Like a
there-
note
there
and
was
some money.
about-
That was all.
some money.
Remember
Yeah.
the place we talked about and just like stuff like that?
Yeah, Tijuana.
Yes.
Was
I
that it?
believe it was called. Or I'm
Say not
messing
to
it up
weigh
really
you
badly.
or something.
Something like that. It's a really like weird name, but let's not. I guess.
Down
Yeah.
in Mexico.
Yeah, it's on the western coast of Mexico.
Yeah, basically, like in the movie, it was like he left the box there with the note, because that was
Yeah.
gonna be like the reminder that, hey, I got out, I'm okay, and this is where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, the last portion of the novella in the movie kind of are very similar in when, although I don't even think Red ends up going all the way to Mexico in the novella, because the novella is portrayed as something that Red wrote himself.
I see.
When once he got out of prison, and there's a whole bit about how he had to change some names and stuff, so just in case anybody found him with it on parole.
Oh, that's funny.
So, and also in the novella, he wasn't exactly sure where the rock would be. He only knew it was on the north side of a field by a wall. That's all Andy had told him. Yeah. So he had to search through multiple fields to find it.
Wow. That's crazy.
In the movie, he was specific. He said, because like he said that, but then he said it was gonna be underneath a stone that had no reason to be there.
Right. It was like
which is said in the novel too. Yeah. But I don't think they even mentioned a tree in the novel. But the tree is what kind of helps Red find it.
Right. Yeah, and the tree is very specific too in the film. Like, where his wife and him made love
Yeah.
But
yeah, he had.
I'd argue that was probably an improvement for the film. Like, with Andy being a little more specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, so of course we have to talk about him digging the hole, and then he had to like crawl through the crap.
Yeah.
The length of a football field.
Yeah.
Or several football fields, I think.
Yeah,
it was like 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Maybe it was. Yeah, it was several football fields length.
Yeah, like
he had to crawl through
the sewers.
I'm sure, like, if you were in his position, you know, like, you would do it because you're desperate to get out.
Well, of course. But I think he threw up several times while crawling through that tube.
Yeah, like once you're committed to doing something like that, you can't turn back. So, like, and then, of course, the scene when he finally gets out and he's just like,
yeah, just rips his clothes off in the rain. So good. It must feel so good.
And to kind of go back a little bit, it was very important for him to have a cell to himself for that to happen, and that's a big reason why he did the things for the warden and stuff. Why he did all those all that banking kind of stuff for them. Yeah. So because in the novel, it's heavily implied that everybody, in the movie too, everybody just assumes he's doing it so they can have the library. But to him, having this cell to himself was far more important.
Right.
And in the novel, there's actually a time period where he doesn't have it to himself, and he's unable to do any more digging. But the person who is in the cell with him complains to Red about there being a breeze in the cell, which nobody really gets until the very end, where it's revealed he's been digging a hole.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And when Andy reveals to Red that he has created this phantom, like this fake man, that a lot of the money goes to, that is also, like, in addition to the stone pick, the little pickaxe thing, that's another one of those subtle hints as to what Andy's plan is, like how he's eventually going to escape and become a free man again. And I enjoy it. Like, this, all of those little details make this film very rewatchable, like very worth rewatching.
Yeah, there's always different stuff you can pick up on that you might not have seen in other times you watched it.
The movie really sets up a lot very well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There's a lot of setup in the movie that you don't even realize is happening until it's like, oh hey, that happened.
Right.
After you look back on it.
Something that's kind of funny, I think, is I was fairly young when I first watched this film. Like, I was old enough to understand it, but I wasn't very old. And then it was quite a few years until I saw it again. Like, it was, I think my second time watching it was just a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So it had been a long time between my first and second watches. And when I watched it the second time, I pretty much only remembered, like, I pretty much just remembered how he escaped. That was pretty much all that I had remembered, because I guess that made the biggest impact on, like, biggest impression on me.
Yeah, understandably so.
And so I was picking up all these hints without really remembering any of them, or any of most of the film. But of course, I knew how he would escape and stuff. But it was an interesting rewatch from that perspective.
I didn't watch it till I was like a teenager, so I mean I'm glad about that, because like I was able to catch everything and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, same for me. I didn't watch it until I was a teenager either.
Oh yeah. I actually when I showed the film to my sister once, like I watched it with her, and I had already seen it of course by then, and I knew the film, and I told her that it took place on a prison, and she was like, not that interested. And then I told her, okay, it's about a prison break. And that caught her eye, because I know she likes those kinds of stories about prison breaks. Of course, it isn't as obviously about a prison break, but I was able to get her to watch it anyway by saying that. And she was just waiting for the prison break the whole time.
Longest prison break ever.
Yes. She was just waiting for the whole, the whole, like, 2 hours and 20 minutes for the prison break.
Still pretty cool.
Yeah, oh yeah, she enjoyed it ultimately anyway. But I wouldn't have able to get her to watch it if I hadn't said that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, did this, after watching this film, did either of you, like, look up more Stephen King films or more prison films to watch? Or
I don't know. I mean, I think I did see a really old movie called Cool Hand Luke after watching this movie, and I don't know if you guys saw that, but it's a kind of similar movie. It's like a guy in prison, and he keeps trying to escape multiple times, and he ends up dying in the end. It's different, but it's a prison movie.
Right. For me, as I said at the beginning, to my knowledge anyway, I haven't seen any other films based on Stephen King books, and I don't remember specifically going out looking for prison films after having watched the specific one. However, I did. I was very impressed by Morgan Freeman, as I think most people would be.
Understandably so.
So I became a fan of him, and I sought out other films with him in. So he made a big impact on me.
Hey, Tim Robin was really good too. Like,
oh, he was. He's amazing in this role. The thing with me though is I don't think I've seen him in any other films than this one.
I have. I think he was in some space movie that was like in the late 90s or the early 2000s. I want to say it was Mission to Mars, maybe.
Possibly.
He ends up dying. He ends up dying in the movie. I think it was Mission to Mars. A guy gets trapped on Mars, and they have to go save the guy, and in order to get there, they have this scene where they have to save something out in space, like some part of the ship or something, and Tim Robbins is on the rope, and he has to cut the rope loose in order to make sure his wife gets back to the other ship safely.
Oh. Huh.
So, yeah, he was in that.
Yep. there's a movie called Mission to Mars that came out in 2000 starring him.
All right, cool.
It's a good movie.
I'll remember it. Because I would like to see more films with him, honestly, because I liked his performance, of course, in this film.
Mm-hmm. And then in a different movie, he's kind of like a bad guy, which you wouldn't really expect, is War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. He had a brief role in that.
Oh, I see. How about you, Patrick? Did you seek out other prison films or Stephen King films?
Oh, I did. I seek out many Stephen King films.
Nice.
But after mostly books, I guess. But after I watched this movie, I was really influenced to kind of seek out more Stephen King stuff, like
I was already
Stand By Me and stuff like that.
I was already a Stephen King fan before I saw The Shawshank Redemption. So I mean, I always knew I would go look for other Stephen King stuff.
Yeah.
I have a feeling I would have been a bigger Stephen King fan had I been American. That's just something
maybe.
I don't know, because I guess he's
you
probably bigger there.
You don't have to necessarily be American to like Stephen King.
Oh no, that's not what I mean. I just think he's probably had more of an influence in your culture than he has over here. Just because, I'm assuming,
fair enough.
Probably makes sense. And I think if I had been introduced to his stuff more frequently while growing up, I would have probably given him a more honest try earlier on. I assume.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's about time to wrap this up. So
I think so.
Yeah.
This has been Petter.
Yes, it's been Petter.
It's been.
And Charles.
Yes, it's been fun.
It has.
No, it's legitimately fun, but the way you phrased it, like, it's been, you didn't say anything.
I know, I'm so sorry. And it's been Patrick.
Yep, and this has been Patrick.
Oh, is that
like
some kind of ongoing thing for this? You just go, it's been...
I don't know, this is the second episode. We don't have any routines yet, really.
Anyway, this has been The Third Reel. See you guys later.
Bye-bye.